Gentleman yields back now. Recognize the gentleman from Colorado, Mr. Neguse, for his time of questioning.
I thank the chairman. Chairman Cole, I presume you agree with what the gentleman from Georgia said. This is a red state, blue state issue. That's your?
No, I did not.
Oh, you said radical governors versus governors not complying with the law.
Hang on, stop. It's not a debate between the two members.
I hear you.
It's
I'm
your
asking Mr.
time.
Cole a question.
Yeah, I mean, try not to put words into Mr. Scott's mouth, but at the same time, it's not Mr. Scott's time.
I thank the chairman. How about we do it this way, Mr. Chairman Cole, I want to read you a quote. Quote, I think the death of Americans, what we're seeing on TV, it's causing deep concerns over federal tactics and accountabilities. Americans don't like what they're seeing right now. You want to take a guess who might have said that?
No.
The governor of Oklahoma, someone I suspect you know well, Governor Stitt, said that on TV a few weeks ago. So this notion that this is purely an issue in Democratic states with Democratic governors or states with Democratic mayors, clearly across the board you have heard over the course of the last several weeks an outcry among the vast majority of Americans who I think are deeply offended at what they see ICE doing in Minneapolis and beyond. Now, with respect to the gentleman from Georgia, because he talked a lot about the various different sub-agencies within the Department of Homeland Security, I will say he expressed more support for some of these sub-agencies within the department than the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. I mean, it sort of is, refrain about FEMA. Secretary Noem has talked about abolishing FEMA. Now we're forced to listen about, from my colleagues, that we must do everything we can to save FEMA from the same people who said nothing when Secretary Noem was discussing abolishing it. Cybersecurity, CISA. The Trump administration has proposed to cut by a third, 1,000 people they're trying to fire at the cybersecurity division. And I'm supposed to take at face value statements from my colleagues that this is that it's outrageous that we would have a continuing resolution for the Department of Homeland Security and the cybersecurity division, that would put them in a tough spot. I think you ought to be complaining to the Secretary of Homeland Security, the Trump administration, not to your Democratic colleagues. I will also say, I wish my colleague from Texas were here, Mr. Roy, and I trust my good friend from Georgia can perhaps relay this to him. Because to hear him somehow tout this bill as an example, as a paragon of fiscal responsibility, is too much to bear, having listened to him on this committee every week for the better part of the last 3 years. Let me read you from the Cato Institute what they say about this bill. Last week, the proposed $1.7 trillion discretionary budget represents a $24 billion increase compared to fiscal year 2025 levels. It is $50 billion above the 2023 Fiscal Responsibility Act's non-binding budget targets, which we, of course, played a part in negotiating, as you all will remember, just a few short years ago. And by the way, this doesn't include the $300 billion that Republicans allocated to the Department of Homeland Security, specifically ICE, and the Defense Department last year in the OBBA. So, you all may have your reasons as to why you think that these bills deserve to be passed. I certainly don't. But fiscal responsibility cannot be one of the reasons. Just full stop. The empirical evidence makes that very clear. Fiscal year 2026 will mark the first year since the passage of the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023 that Congress will not have statutorily binding spending caps. So spare us talk of fiscal responsibility when this bill ignores that entirely. To say nothing of, by the way, the discussion around earmarks, and this is not meant for the chairman or the ranking member of the Appropriations Committee. It's meant more for my colleague from South Carolina and in absentia, who has, again, railed about earmarks every meeting that I've attended, and I guess is prepared to vote on a bill that includes every earmark one could conceive of. $1 million for the elevator repair at New York City's Met Opera. I look forward to understanding how the gentleman from South Carolina, again, talk about paragon of fiscal responsibility, how he justifies that vote for his constituents. In any event, the question that I would like to ask of the chairman and the ranking member relates to, of course, the Department of Homeland Security, because the backstory, of course, with respect to the bill that we're considering today is in the context of what's happening across the country and the serious objections that you've heard from colleagues on my side of the aisle, myself included, and why I'll be voting against this bill when it comes to the floor tomorrow, if it gets there. Mr. Cole, I wonder, you've heard, I'm sure, from many Democratic colleagues of yours about our belief that Secretary Noem should be impeached. And I wonder if you agree with that or what you think of impeachment.
I'm not going to speculate on something that hasn't happened, no, I don't agree with that, but if you want to have impeachment, go right ahead. You have the ability to offer a motion to that deal, but that's really not what we're here to discuss.
We're here to
the
discuss
appropriations process.
I hear you, but
and funding the rest of the government, most of which is unfunded right now. I mean, right now, we are not paying men and women to defend it. We're not paying the air traffic controllers that brought us all here that flew safely. We're not paying the TSA. We're not funding the government. These other things are important, and I think the Senate, I don't agree with what they did, but they said, okay, let's set aside 2 weeks here and only fund this for 2 weeks. The rest of this stuff is really, honestly, extraordinarily important to the country.
Our objections.
What this bill does is keep funding that.
I hear you.
And then leave open this other
You
area where
made a
people
very
have
impassioned
concerns.
case on that, and I think you answered my question. As you heard from the ranking member, as you heard from Ms. Scanlon, and I echo their sentiments, there is a complete lack of trust and a loss of trust with respect to what the Trump administration is doing. There are many of us who will not support the appropriation that, whether it's a continuing resolution or the proposed budget that the House passed last week that we all voted against, and many of us who believe that there must be a change in leadership and that Secretary Noem should be the subject of impeachment proceedings. It sounds like you disagree on that latter point. You don't think she should be
I'm gonna
impeached?
talk about appropriations bills, not impeachment. That is not the subject in front of us right here. That's not got anything to do with any of the bills we're working on. Simply trying to fund the government.
That sounds like a maybe.
Look, if you want to have a theatrical debate.
It's not a theatrical debate.
Yes, it is, because it doesn't have anything to do with any of this legislation.
It has everything to
It
do with the
has
Department of Homeland
zero.
Security's budget.
If you want to talk about the Homeland Security budget, I'm happy to talk about the budget. It's not an impeachment issue, it's a budgetary issue. And what's proposed.
Is that right?
Is a 2-week, yes, it is.
Okay, let me explain why I think that view is misplaced. Secretary Noem has unlawfully impounded funds in violation of the Impoundment Control Act, right? That relates to the budget that the House and the Senate are passing for the department to implement. She has violated the law. Not a question. I'll
Okay,
finish and I'll give you an
we're
opportunity.
passing a continuing resolution.
I'll give you an opportunity.
For 2 weeks, okay. I'm
So,
sorry.
your question was, how does the impeachment of Secretary Noem, or impeachment proceedings against her, concern the Department of Homeland Security budget? And my answer to you is that she has violated the law, in my view, and in the view of many others, in a number of ways as it relates to the money that has been appropriated to her agency. That has included unlawfully impounding funds. That has included obstructing congressional oversight in violation of riders that have been passed in this appropriations bill previously. The record is replete with these examples. So that's why I ask you about it. And it's not a gotcha. You answered it. You said you don't agree with it, or you don't think that she should be
If
impeached.
you want to
So
bring
that's
an
your view.
impeachment resolution, by all means, do so.
And the reason I ask, as you could probably imagine, is that I didn't hear the same reticence from my Republican colleagues, including you, Mr. Chairman, with all due respect, a year and a half ago, when all of you seemed very, very eager to impeach Secretary Mayorkas. I'm sure you recall your vote to impeach him, yes?
I certainly did.
Yeah. There was a mad rush on your side of the aisle to impeach Secretary Mayorkas. I didn't hear anybody at the time say that that was an inappropriate use of the time within the House or the ability of members to be able to pursue. And it sounds like
I said it didn't have anything to do with an appropriations bill. That didn't have anything to do with an appropriations bill. That was some measure put in front of me. I voted on it. I don't think you'll find I spoke on it or that it was but comes to the floor of the House, you got an obligation to cast a vote. that's appropriate. All I'm saying is I'm here to talk about appropriations. That's what's in front of us. And it's not the package I would have preferred. It's the package that came over from the United States Senate. I still think passing it is better than not passing it. You and I obviously disagree on that. Fair enough.
I appreciate that. Well, I'll certainly agree with you on that last sentiment, which is that you and I disagree on it. There's no, in my view, basis to continue supporting the lawlessness that the agency, ICE in particular, has been perpetrating against the American people in the context of this appropriations bill, and I'll be voting no on that basis. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentleman from Georgia.